Hi there everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more the latter. This is another one of my speed reviews where I'm talking about Klink from Rebel Studios. This is one of their new filler games that has come out, and the object of the game is to score the least points possible, and you will carry on through multiple rounds until somebody hits 77 points, at which point you then see, points going to get repeated a lot here, at which point you see who's got the lowest score. So the way each round works is that a player will take two cards from the deck and they won't look at them, like I just did then. They'll place them out in front of them. And so they'll then look at one of the cards and see, okay, that's a 10. All right, what do I do with this? They then decide whether they're going to keep both cards and flip them over, or they're going to give them to another player who then gets to look at any one of the two cards and then has to make the same choice. Do they flip both of them and keep them, or do they give them to another player? If you're the last player, then you have to flip them no matter what. So I might look at this 10 and think, I don't really fancy that, so I'll give it to another player. They look at the other card and go, well, that's a 4. I mean, that's not particularly high. Fine. They keep it, flip them over. I've got 14 points already. Not particularly great. But there's a few little twists that you can perform. If you manage to find, let's say I find two more cards. It's an 8 and a 3, but that's not particularly good. But let's say, as I try to find the example out of this deck, let's say I now get two cards. I look at one and it's a 10. I've already got a 10. If you get two of the same number in front of you, they flip face down and are now worth 0. So you want to pair up numbers, particularly high ones, because they will stop being worth points. The other thing that you can work for is trying to create what's called a triad, which basically just means a run of 3 cards. So 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, and there's even minus numbers in here, so you could have -1, 0, and 1. That is technically feasibly possible, but I am just trying to find a 2 as an example, and I seem to be struggling to do that. Why have the 2s all decided to go and find a new home? Here we go. There we go. 2. So if I can create a 1, 2, or 3 in front of me, then you get to trigger off one of these special powers. They'll be free on the table at any time, and these are pretty straightforward powers. I mean, give one of your cards to another player, end the round immediately, choose a player, they must flip one of their face down cards, basically some form of manipulation shenanigans. So I might decide, you know what, I'm going to take this power because I've created these free, give one of my cards to another player. Well, these are my other cards that I've got in front of me, a 4, 8, and a 10. You ain't got another 10, here you go, here's 10 points. Little simple powers like that. And then this will refresh and you'll have 3 more powers to look from. The round basically continues until somebody has got 10 cards in front of them, just 10 cards in general, at which point end the round after that turn's done. You will total up all the points that are showing face up in front of you, but there's another little twist. Yes, but wait, there's more, because whoever has the most cards in front of them will deduct 10 points off their score. Whoever has the least amount of cards in front of them will add 10 points to their score. So there is an incentive to get a lot of cards, but you run the risk of just getting far too many points. And then there's also the problem that if you're too cowardly and you don't take any cards, you're going to get another 10 points slapped onto your score, whether you like it or not, despite whether you've got few cards in front of you. So the game basically has a neat number of little twists that can be thrown in. But what this game basically boils down to is an element of a little bit of bluffing, a bit of push your luck, and some simple little mechanics like that. Because you don't have complete information. You're only ever looking at one of the 2 cards you get. And you can end up with some major lucky things of saying, right, well, okay, I've decided I'm going to look at 2 cards, and I've looked at, 2 here. One's a 9. Well, I could create a triad soon. That's fine. I'll keep the 1, 9. You flip them over and they're both 9 and suddenly they all flip down. It's lucky, but that's kind of the nature of the beast for a simple filler card game. I mean, this only had 20 minutes on the timer. It's not like it's a long game, people. A bit of luck is not a big deal. You can trash talk to your heart's content when you pass these cards over. I mean, it's great to, if you're someone like me who really likes cockroach poker, which has the similar kind of like, I'm going to give you these and I want you to flip them over, so I'm going to goad you into doing it by telling you that the card I just looked at was a 3, for example. You can believe me or not, but I'm going to have fun trying to mess with your mind, and so, if you're in that kind of group, this will go down pretty well. But I like the little manipulation tricks that you can perform with, using these powers, or the incentive that you've got when you look at a card to think, well, I could pair it up with that will give me less points, but I wouldn't say no to creating a triad and using one of these abilities. And some of these ones, like end the round immediately, can, really cause some major fluctuations in like whether somebody was doing well or not. And I particularly like the aspect that when you finish a round, you have to look at who has the most and least cards. That I find a cool twist, because it means that people aren't just going to be constantly focused on having the fewest cards possible. You know, they kind of want to be in the middle or have the most without busting and going completely crazy. The point values in here range mainly from 1 to 10, but there's a few negative numbers in there as well, so obviously it's bad if you flip a -5 over, you know, because you've effectively gained points as a result, so that's not a big deal. Now, I would have maybe liked for a few more of these power cards. There really aren't that many. I think there's literally only about, like, what, 10 of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 12. Yeah, there really isn't many of these powers, and I think maybe we could have had a few more. Not loads more, but just maybe more than 12, because you will sort of rinse and repeat and see these a lot. But that's not a massive deal. Game says 3 to 5 players. A little bit concerned about the 3-player mode. I think this game works fine at 4 and definitely works at 5, because like Cockroach Poker, you kind of want a lot of different players with different setups and displays in front of them to decide who you're going to pass the cards to. The problem you have with 3 players is that you've only got 2 displays to look at, and also when you give it to one person, if they decide to give it to the 3rd player, well, that 3rd player is stuffed and has to flip them anyway. And it just seems a little anticlimactic to only really have 2 people look at the cards before somebody is forced to do it. This way, chances are somebody is going to take these 2 cards before it gets to a 5th player, but it could get to a 5th player. And so, you know, 4 minimum, 5 recommended is the player count I say for this. I don't recommend this if you're only going to play it with 3. Those ones just felt a little bit kind of anticlimactic and, you know, not particularly worth it. But not much else to say. I mean, you get a score pad in here, you got to provide your own pen, big deal. The rules are very straightforward. I do hate these leaflet style rules because you're constantly having to sort of like, I don't know which way around it's supposed to be, but nature of the beast, it's a very compact game. It's very cheap, it's very easy. It's just another one of those nice little fillers, kind of like ranking alongside the likes of something like Red 9, you know, like those games where it's all just about cards with numbers on them and you do some weird tricksy like mechanic in order to, you know, staying around or avoid points or gain points. It's like that kind of thing. This is comparable to something like Red 9 in the flavour that it gives. It's neat. It's not, you know, reinventing the wheel. I think that if you play with the wrong group who isn't likely willing to goad people when they give cards out, it might be a little bit dry. But, you know, for a 20-minute filler that does what it sets out to do, it's a quick filler. You know, I mean, you can play this to 100 points rather than 77. I don't actually know why 77 is the number to use. That doesn't make sense, but whatever. But I don't recommend playing this to 100. I mean, you don't need to make this game any longer than it already is. Just stick to 77, because then at least the game doesn't outstay its welcome. It probably will if you start doing 100, unless one player does catastrophically bad in several rounds. But it's neat. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it's a neat little concept. It's tricksy. It's a short filler. It's very compact. I'll squeeze it anywhere on my shelf. It does what it sets out to do. It's just nothing I would say is amazing, but I'd say it's good and decent. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 overall. It's good. You know, it's definitely something I recommend if you're trying to build up a selection of filler games and you like these tricksy things. I think Klink will be a nice solid one to ask, because it's simple. It's made well. You know, these cards are pretty stiff cards. I mean, you know, they've got white borders, so they shouldn't scuff to mark them in any way, but they're also quite sturdy to the fact that I don't think you need to bother sleeving these. You know, it sits in the insert, you know, nice. I can't get the box off at this point, but, you know, it's got a nice little cradle inside to house the cards, so they'll be nice and secure. You haven't got to bag anything up. It's just nice, compact, cheap, easy little filler, which for a 7 out of 10 is one that I do recommend. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Check out the other speed reviews I've done. Draft and Write Records and Free of a Kind are the 2 I've done so far, although I don't know which order I'm going to release these in. And by all means, check out all the other bigger reviews I've done, as well as the giant lists of best and worst that I've done. That massive series. So take care, and remember, regardless if you can understand why the hell 77 is an important point limit in this game, it's still only a game. So bye for now.